Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you here. Before we get started, I'd like to welcome Pastor Jeff Kane with C3 Church in Milton to lead us in our invocation. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Mr. Mayor. Let's pray. Father God, I thank you for a free country, God. I thank you for America. Father, I thank you for a prosperous city in Milton, Georgia. And I thank you for a city council and a mayor, Father, who look to you. And so, God, we pray as we look to you, God, that you'll be faithful, as you always are, to answer our prayers and to give your guidance and your wisdom to these city council members and this mayor. We thank you in advance for all that you do, God, and we look forward to all you're going to do in this city and in our lives. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay. I'd like to call the regular meeting of Milton City Council for Monday, October 20th, 2014 to order. Will the city clerk please call the roll and make general announcements?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be happy to call roll for the October 20th, 2014 regular meeting. I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. Those attending the meeting who would like to provide public comment, either during the public hearing or during the call for public comment, you are required to complete a public comment card prior to speaking on the item. There is no public comment for consent agenda items or items under first presentation. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that the speaker cards were received by the city clerk staff prior to the beginning of tonight's meeting. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization if applicable. The City Council may allow public comment on either an agenda item or general public comment from a representative of such an organized group or association, provided that such an individual shall file a notarized affidavit that they have the authority to speak on behalf of said organization on a form provided by the city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited, so please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outbursts, or dialogue with any person speaking. Please show the same respect to the person speaking that you will expect to receive yourself. Anyone in violation will be asked to leave. As I call roll this evening, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Here.
Councilmember Karen Thurman.
Here.
Councilmember Matt Coots.
Here.
Councilmember Bill Lusk.
Here.
Councilmember Bert Hewitt.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Longoria.
Here.
And Councilmember Rick Morick.
Here.
Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight. Appreciate you being here. And, I'll go ahead and start. And City, if you'll please sound the next item on the agenda.
Our next item is approval of the meeting agenda. This is agenda item number 14284.
Okay. Is there anything we want to change?
Mr. Mayor, I'd request tonight remove the new business agenda item number 14288, which is the consideration of a resolution appointing a member to the City of Milton Design Review Board, until after the consent agenda. And then also, I'd ask, and I'll explain why here in a couple of minutes, but I'd ask that you defer the update from the Fulton County Schools Deputy Superintendent Patrick Burke, defer that to the November the 10th work session.
Okay. And also, we do not need to have an executive session tonight, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Do I have a motion on the agenda with the changes that our city manager just made?
Make a motion with the changes just spoken. Second.
All right. I've got a motion from Councilmember Hewitt, second from Councilmember Longoria. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay. Next item is public comment. Public comment is a time for citizens to share information with the mayor and the city council and to provide input and opinions on any matter that is not scheduled for its own public hearing during today's meeting. There's no discussion on the items on the consent agenda or first presentation from the public or from council. Each citizen who chooses to participate in the public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to the city clerk. Please remember this is not a time to engage the mayor or members of the city council in conversation. When your name is called, please come forward and speak into the microphone, stating your name and address for the record. You'll have 5 minutes for remarks. Do we have any general public comment?
Yes, sir, we have two. Our first one comes from Miss Laura Rencher.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Laura Rensher. I live at 1060 Birmingham Road. Mayor and council, I want to thank you all for the conservation work you've done so far in the city. Really appreciative of you all hiring Laurel, Tom Daniels, and getting Randall in last week to talk about the conservation subdivisions. I think we're really on the right track. And what I want to present tonight is really a framework for thinking and talking about conservation. It's a little difficult to put all these pieces together and know how to think about them, know how they relate to each other. So I just got a few minutes of PowerPoint to help you guys think about it a little differently. Obviously, there are really just two main steps in city conservation. The first step is determining how much land you want to conserve and which parcels of land to conserve and prioritize according to the importance to the community. So at the present time, we know that Tom Daniels recommended a land preservation advisory committee to be formed, and I believe part of what he recommended was the advisory committee go on and help identify and prioritize this land. So this is kind of where I see we are at this point in our process. And just a little information about what kind of land we might want to preserve, and that is environmentally sensitive land, such as marshland, Chicken Creek marshland on Hopewell Road, and other spaces around that area. The natural attributes of a property may be considered worthy, such as very large specimen trees or a natural spring. Other reasons we might want to save land is because of the location of the property, such as we might decide that Doris Road is one of the most beautiful roads in our city, so we want to save the rural viewshed and conserve the front couple of acres of everybody's land on there. Make sure those large lots are not subdivided, as we've already started to see on that street. In addition, we can save these historically significant places, such as the location of the old county voting booth, which I think was originally the post office on the corner of Birmingham and Freemanville. And then other land we may be interested in conserving are ones that promote connectivity, such as for the Milton Trail. Step two this is really pretty simple. The second step is to how to preserve the land. We can buy the land, and for the most part, we don't really have the money to do that, and we're probably not going to have the money to do that. So the best choice we have, and it's a lot of bang for the buck, is using conservation easements. And conservation easements can be used on part of the property. They can be used on whole property. It's a legal agreement between a landowner and a land trust or government agency that permanently limits the use of land by taking away developmental rights in order to protect its conservation value. It allows landowners to continue to use and own the land. So we are not taking ownership of this land. So it works out because they get to continue to live there or whatever. Tom Daniels is recommending we conserve about 4,000 acres of land before 2050. And this is the piece that I think you all may not realize, is that every piece of those acres is going to be conserved with conservation easements. How does the city get landowners to consent to voluntary conservation easements on 4,000 acres or more of land? It's a pretty big question. Pretty difficult thing, but the fact is we already have a lot of these pieces in place, and if our goal is conservation, then what we got to think of it in terms of how can we get the maximum number of conservation, how many easements can we get, how many acres of conservation easements. So as we think about conservation, I guess what I'm trying to convey is the most helpful way to think about it is, how can we do this? How can we get the most of these conservation easements? We've got the Transfer of Developmental Rights program as a way to get these easements. We've got conservation subdivisions that we're developing. We've got the donation of easements, because there are people who value their land enough that they will donate easements. And then the last is the purchase of developmental rights. And I'm going to wrap up, but this is the one we haven't talked about a lot. It's going to take a lot of money. It's probably going to take a bond initiative. And I'm throwing it out there because I'm being realistic. We can use impact fees and all kinds of things to do it. But anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sudi, do we have any more public comment?
Our last general public comment comes from Jack Linden.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. My name is Jack Linden. I live at 14810 East Bluff Road, and I'm speaking tonight as chairman of the Milton Groves Green Environmental Committee to report to you on the work that was done this weekend on our Rivers Alive stream cleanup. This is a yearly event that's been going on for about 2 decades now. It's sponsored by the Georgia Environmental Protection Department. And this is a volunteer effort where children are brought together to go out and clean up the streams in the city. This past weekend on Saturday, we had approximately 40 middle and high school students and about 18 adults that came out to volunteer for this effort. The way this works is we have members of the Milton Groves Green Committee that volunteer to go out ahead of time and survey various parts of the city to try to find sites that are appropriate. That is, to find which are the most trashy sites. And this year we identified about 20 sites. There are approximately 50 sites in the city where streams cross roads, and that's where most of the trash accumulates. So we identified 20 sites. We actually cleaned up 17. 2 of those sites were particularly environmentally sensitive: the swamp area on Hopewell Road and the swampy area down at the corner of Morris Road and Bethany Bend. And those were really badly in need of cleanup, and that was accomplished. The report from the crew that finished with collecting all of the trash that was collected, we had estimated at somewhat more than 2,000 pounds of trash was collected. And we have pictures, which will probably end up on the city website. But I just wanted you to know about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And just in general comment, many thanks to Milton Groves Green and all the volunteers that helped. So it's very important. And I did see some pictures. You guys got a lot of stuff. So. All right. Is that it on public comment, City?
That's all, sir.
Okay. We'll move on to our consent agenda.
Our first item this evening is approval of the following subdivision plats. Taylor Estates, final plat, lot layout for 8 lots and easements. Hawthorne Manor, final plat, lot layout for 12 lots and easements. Morningstar Luxury Homes, LLC, Francis Road, minor subdivision plat revision, move proposed driveway for Lot 2, Manorview Phase 1, final plat, lots 1 through 6 and 66 through 72. Shadowwood Farms subdivision, minor subdivision plat, lots 5 and 6, Cedar Park, final plat revisions, revised lot lines between lots 2 and 3 to alleviate driveway encroachment from lot 2, FEMA flood information updated as well as current property owners. The Grove on Birmingham Highway, final plat, lot layout for 39 lots and easements. Reserve at Providence, final plat, lot layout for 36 lots and easements. Agenda item number 14285. Our next item is approval of a construction services agreement between the City of Milton and Blunt Construction Company, Inc. for the installation of 3 concrete pads at Hopewell Middle School. Agenda item number 14286. Our third and final consent agenda item this evening is approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Milton and Design Sensory, Inc. to produce the City of Milton's website. Agenda item number 14287.
Mayor, I'll move to approve the consent agenda as prepared by staff.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second for approval on the consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay. Our next item, I believe we moved from down the line to right after the consent agenda. So it's the designated, whatever you call it, Sudi, to designate a DRB member. So I think Councilmember Leska's going to do that.
I shall. And I'm happy to do this. My appointee on the DRB, Steve Check, notified me about a month ago that he was, his professional life had more demands, and reluctantly he had to step down. So I put him in charge of finding his replacement, and tonight I'd like to propose that replacement. And it is Mr. Tony Shepard, and Tony is a resident of Nettlebrook Farms, corner of Thompson and Red Road. Tony's lived in the Milton area for about 17 years. He's been an employee of Verizon, our neighbor across the road here, for over 21 years. Tony's been active in the Nettlebrook subdivision as a president of the Nettlebrook HOA, and has been in charge of several improvements in that subdivision. He's been active in several other areas of the city. He's chairman of the board for the North Atlanta Christian Flight Incorporated. It's a not-for-profit for Christian sports organization which provides homeschooled students the opportunity to participate in organized competitive sports. He's been involved in that for over 21 years. His wife Shannon, who's with him tonight, been married for 21 years. They have 3 children, Joshua, John Robert, Haley, and really they have 4 children, don't they? Jeremiah. Can't read my own writing here at times. And Tony's a graduate of that school over on the other side, University of Alabama.
Roll tide.
I'll have to vote no.
And he has a BS in accounting from the University of from Alabama. So tonight I would like to propose and move that we appoint Tony Shepard to post 2, or District 2, post 1, to replace the vacated chair on the DRB.
Okay. I'll open up for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consideration of a resolution appointing Tony Shepard to the City of Milton Design Review Board for District 2, Post 1.
Second.
Okay, got a motion by Councilmember Kuntz, seconded by Councilmember Thurman. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. And I will ask Tony would mind stepping forward, and we'll go ahead and swear him in. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear and affirm
I do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will faithfully perform the duties of
that I will faithfully perform the duties of
the Design Review Board member
the Design Review Board member
of the city,
of the city,
and that I will support and defend the Charter
and I will support and defend the Charter
thereof,
thereof,
as well as the Constitution
as well as the Constitution
and the laws of the state of Georgia
and the laws of the state of
and of
Georgia
the United States of America.
and the United States of America.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
We always like to say we certainly appreciate not only the volunteers but their family, and it's we've got a lot of people that put in a lot of time, and it makes a big difference in our city. So we really appreciate that. Thank you for being a part. Bill, I think you forgot to give Tony's home phone number in case you know, anybody has a complaint or question.
Requirement.
All right, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to reports and presentations. On item number 1, we will be deferred till November. So looks like the next item, Sudi, if you'll call.
Next item is presentation of Crabapple Fest success. This is being presented by Miss Angela Thompson and Mr. Peyton Jamison.
Good evening. We're here obviously to tell you how successful Crabapple Fest was. This year we had a really good partnership with CCA again, and we couldn't have done it without Peyton Jamison, the president of CCA. He took on planning and executing all of the vendors that we had and dealt with all the logistics of that part, and without his help we couldn't have done it. So thank you, Peyton. But I would like to say that we had a conservative estimate of over 30,000 attendees, which is over twice as many people as we had last year, which was pretty impressive. And the budget came in under by $1,100, and we brought in $10,000 last year in sponsorship dollars, but this year we brought in $33,750 in sponsorship dollars, with an additional $12,000 in in-kind items that helped us stay under budget. For next year, we're considering possibly doing a 2-year festival, but we have
2 days.
I'm sorry, 2 days. Not 2 years. I'm sorry, Peyton and I just talked about doing. We also talked about doing it two times a year. So there's a lot of things up in the air. If you guys have feedback, we would love to hear it. We've heard from a lot of our vendors, and it's kind of up in the air on what everyone wants to do. So we'd love to hear your opinion on it. Twice a year might be more challenging. But a 2-day is doable. We'll see. It's on what our vendors want to do, because they're what makes our event so successful. And also, if you hear any feedback or if there's anything that we can improve on for next year, please let me know. We'd love to make it even better next year and maybe see closer to 50,000. We'll see.
Real quick, on the CCA front, we made about $14,000 net of expenses from the vendors. And that money just goes directly into the community. We'll do more events and we'll up our scholarships. So all in all, it was a great partnership. And I will say, every business I go to, I went to the barbecue place, went to Grand Champion, and they keep on bragging about do it again, because they ran out of food. Nothing but cakes ran out of food.
3 times.
All the local businesses, it's their biggest day. And it's really just special to have the community, the businesses, and antique vendors all come together. So we appreciate it.
And thank you all for stopping by and seeing it. It was one of a kind. I think we were all pretty impressed with what we pulled together. So thank you.
Sure. I'll just say, you know, first I want to say it was a great event, but also, Peyton, thank you to you and the Crabapple Community Association. Obviously, Angela and the rest of our staff, everybody that helped, as well as, you know, the citizens and volunteers and everybody here. So thank you very much. It was a great event, and that's one of the things that I think is a benefit to being a city is now is that people have started to grasp and appreciate the whole community feel. And obviously the numbers are proving that with the folks that show up.
Absolutely. So,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, I must say that the first time I ever came to what is now the city of Milton was to go to the Crabapple Festival. And that's really what I fell in love with initially, was the festival and the small town feel that it had up here, and why we eventually moved up here. So, you know, you don't really understand what the festival can do, but it really can make a big difference in people and how they perceive the area.
it definitely helps introduce our community to a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Appreciate it.
It's been 35
Okay.
years ago.
All right, City, I don't think we have any first presentation items. So if we can move on to our zoning agenda, if you want to read the rules and sound the items.
At the second regularly scheduled meeting of the month, the mayor and city council will consider a zoning agenda. These items include rezoning petitions, modifications of zoning, use permits, and associated concurrent variances, in addition to ordinances, resolutions, and text amendments. I would like to acquaint you with the rules and procedures for the meeting. The applicant and all those speaking in support of an application will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present the petition. The applicant may choose to save some of the time for rebuttal following the presentation by the opposition. Since the burden of proof is upon the applicant will be allowed to make closing remarks, provided time remains with the allotted time. The city clerk will be keeping track of time and will inform you periodically for the remaining time for your presentation. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that the speaker cards are received by the city clerk prior to the beginning of tonight's meeting. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization, if applicable, before beginning their presentation. The Planning Commission has heard the rezoning agenda items, and recommendations have been forwarded to the mayor and city council for consideration and disposition. The applicant shall not submit material to the council during this meeting unless requested to do so. All material that you wish to be reviewed by the council in consideration of your application should be submitted to the Community Development Department to be included in the normal distribution of packages to the council. When an opponent of a rezoning action has made within 2 years immediately preceding the filing of the rezoning action being opposed, campaign contributions aggregating $250 or more to a local government official of the local government which will consider the application, it shall be the duty of the opponent to file a disclosure with the governing authority of the respective local government at least 5 days prior to the Planning Commission meeting. A violation of relevant state statute constitutes a misdemeanor. Therefore, if you have contributed $250 or more to a council member and you have not filed a disclosure prior to the Planning Commission meeting, the city attorney strongly suggests that you have someone else speak for your point of view. Our first zoning item this evening is consideration of RZ 14-05 to amend Article 6, Division 23, CUP Community Unit Plan District. Agenda item number 14189. First presentation was heard at the July 7th regular council meeting. This was discussed at the July 14th City Council work session, deferred at the July 21st and September 22nd City Council meetings. Ms. Kathy Field.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. The Community Development Department recommends approval of the proposed text amendments as follows. As was mentioned on October 13th, 2014, there was a council work session where there were discussions regarding the status of the CUP and NUP zoning districts. Based on these discussions, staff now proposes to preserve the CUP zoning district with some amendments and to delete the NUP zoning district. And that's because we're essentially combining the NUP and the CUP into one ordinance. And below are the changes proposed to the CUP district. 1, we will include properties with a minimum of 4 acres. And again, this is the type of property that required an NUP district. So anything from 4 acres above will be allowed. 2, delete all uses except for single-family residential and golf, country club, pool, and recreation court. If you remember, in the original CUP, triplexes, two-family dwellings, quadruplexes, townhomes, and multifamily residential, as well as daycares, were all allowed uses. Those have all been deleted now. We're only talking about single-family residential, golf and country club, pool, and recreation court. 3, for properties not served by sanitary sewer, require the applicant to provide a site plan to determine the maximum number of lots that can be developed under the AG1 district. And that's so we can determine what the yield is under an AG1 zoning. I know there was some discussion in the past that the CUP might be a way to increase density. So by determining what the AG1 zoning would allow on a particular parcel, that would be the maximum amount of density that would be allowed under the CUP. 4, staff has deleted the requirement of open space, but will amend the rural Milton overlay to require open space, not only for CUP districts, but also for all developments, including AG1. And the reason we want to put that into the rural Milton overlay, as I mentioned, is that is sort of the regulating plan for all zoning districts, including the AG1 as well as the CUP. So we'll capture both zoning districts by putting it in the overlay. Further, during the discussions, those are the changes we're preparing to make to the CUP that is before you this evening. However, as part of the discussion on October 13th, we also talked about other changes that you requested to be made, but they fall under other documents, and so we're going to follow those changes and amend those documents, but I just wanted to bring them to your attention so as that we appropriately capture them. So in terms of the rural Milton Overlay District, we are going to make the following proposed changes: to require open space for all single-family developments within the overlay. 2, to increase the percentage of lot coverage from the existing 20% up to 25% with the administrative approval of the Community Development Department. So they would be allowed up to 20%, anything over 20%, capped at 25, would be allowed through administrative procedure through my department. And 3, to amend the rural viewshed requiring the city arborist to review and approve a landscape plan for the 40-foot undisturbed buffer adjacent to exterior streets. Those are the changes we would make to the rural Milton overlay, again, which is the regulating plan for the AG1 and certainly any proposed CUP. Under definitions, we would also propose a change, and that is to the definition of lot coverage. We propose that we would delete the golf courses and bodies of water. Currently, the definition of lot coverage reads, for purposes of calculating lot coverage, total lot area shall be the area of the lot reduced by the area of all the following that are located within the boundaries. 1, golf courses, 2, bodies of water, 3, streets. We would delete from that definition golf courses and bodies of water. So those are, so that's the changes to the CUP, as well as proposed changes that we will be making to the rural Milton overlay, as well as to the definitions that are in the text, per the discussion that we had at the meeting on the 13th. Are there any questions?
Okay.
I just have one question. When we talk about open space, that really means open space or recreational areas, including pools and tennis courts and things like that, correct?
Robin, is it, I thought it was,
Yes, it does include recreation. So it's really not just open space, but it's open space in recreational areas. It's just common area space, basically.
that's right, it's common space, that's right, yes.
Bill?
Could you clarify the comment on the arborist's approval?
Yes, we felt that the previous language was a little too arbitrary in terms of defining vegetative coverings and whatnot. And so rather than making it subjective and trying to really figure out what that meant, we thought that it would be tighter to leave it up to the arborist to make that determination on a parcel-by-parcel basis.
Okay, and that's just along the public roads?
Yes.
Okay. I know we belabored
that's the
that
rural
point.
viewshed. That's right.
We belabored that point at the work session.
Right.
So I guess that's in conformance with what we finally agreed upon. You satisfied with that?
And it's only only the side that's,
It's for the rural viewshed.
okay.
It's any street, exterior, we call it an exterior street, that is not within a platted subdivision. So it's the Freemanville, it's the Birmingham.
But as far as what is required to have,
The arborist to do.
right.
So what exists now in the rural viewshed is provide a 40-foot undisturbed buffer and an additional 20-foot no improvement setback for single-family lots adjacent to exterior streets. Where sparsely vegetated, replant the undisturbed buffer in a natural fashion per the approval of the city arborist. Submit landscape plan to the arborist for the preservation of the rural viewshed. So in the discussions from last Monday, what staff got from your suggestions as the council was to read as follows. Provide a 40-foot undisturbed buffer and an additional 20-foot no improvement setback for single-family lots adjacent to exterior streets. Submit landscape plan to arborists for review and approval. So as Kathy said, we were taking out that,
that not condition, but that point of sparsely vegetated. So that was not, it was too general. So we were trying to speak to your request about, let's not just put it in a hole, but just allow the arborist to decide how it should be planted, whether it's a pasture now or whether it's woods, and we just go case by case.
Or whether it's a kudzu field that needs to get rid of.
Exactly. Correct.
Okay. Anybody else with comments? Questions? All right. Do we have any public comment on this?
Yes, sir.
In approval?
We do. We have one public comment, and that would be from Walt Recook.
And is this the only public comment we have?
In opposition or support. This is
Okay.
it.
So, Mr. Recook, if you'll just confirm whether it's in
Yes, sir.
opposition or support.
Good evening. My name is Walt Recook. I'm at 615 Scarlet Oak Trail. I commend the staff for making revisions to the CUP provisions and looking in these different directions. I guess, like you, the only thing I'm not 100% clear on is the amount of open space that's being asked for in this zoning district. I know it's mentioning the overlay, and that's the only thing I've got concerned about, but I do commend them for making these changes and looking at different things and keeping this ordinance in place. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no other public comment, I'll close the hearing. And does council have any questions of staff or any comments? Bill?
Okay, the comment made by Kathy originally is we're going to combine the CUP and the NUP in one ordinance. Is that correct?
That is correct. And then the next item, I will ask you to delete the NUP, but that will be in the next item.
Okay.
And you just change the CUP so it covers the same
Is the NUP?
The same from 4
land
acres up.
size of it.
That's right.
The NUP isn't.
I'm sorry, yes, correct.
Okay. All right, if there's no more questions, I'll open up, and there's no more, I'll close the public hearing. I'll open up for a motion.
Okay, Mayor, I'll move to approve RZ 14-05 to amend Article 6, Division 23, CUP, Community Unit Plan District. Agenda item number 14-189er.
Second?
Okay, we've got a motion by Councilmember Lusk, second by Councilmember Thurman in approval. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Sudi, if you'll please call the next item.
The next item is consideration of RZ 14-06 to amend Article 6, Division 24, NUP, Neighborhood Unit Plan District. Agenda item number 14190, first presentation was heard on July 7th. Discussed at the July 14th City Council work session, deferred at the July 21st and September 22nd City Council meetings. Ms. Kathy Field.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Under this item, we would now like to propose that we delete the NUP zoning district. However, at the advice of the city attorney, he recommends that there is a need to keep the NUP district for existing zonings. So if you see on the actual language that we put together for this NUP, we specifically say the regulations set forth in this division are the NUP district regulations for those properties that were zoned to the NUP district prior to December 17, 2013. After October 20, 2014, no additional property shall be rezoned to the NUP district. So that maintains those that were created, but it says now going forward, there should be no more zoned to the NUP.
So if you're anything like me, to support the position that Kathy just suggested, the motion would be to approve, even though it might seem that we're asking you to do something in the negative. It's actually in the positive that will cause the condition that she just described to occur.
Yep. Is there any questions for Kathy right now on this? Or? clears mud on that. Sue, do we have any public comment?
We have one. That's Mr. Walt Recook.
Is that in opposition or
He
approval?
did not state.
Okay. That's the only, so, that's the only public
That's
comment.
the only
So,
one.
go ahead, Mr. Rico.
Good evening. My name's Walt Recook. I live at 615 Scarlet Oak Trail, Milton, Georgia. The only question I have on the NUP again is if we have areas that do open up into additional sewered areas by saying that everything's got to be under the CUP and then also under the new CUP, it excludes certain townhomes and more dense features. You're sometimes limiting yourself by what could be allowed in the NUP. Although I'm not a great user of NUPs, because I typically deal with much larger lots, I just say that there is some chance that you could be not having the flexibility that the NUP offers for multifamily in sewered areas. Although I know we don't have many areas that are sewered, it could cause you some limitations in that respect. So that's my only comment by purely eliminating it. Thank you.
Thank you. Cal closed the public hearing. Go back. Is there any questions of staff? Comments from council? If not, I'll open up for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the consideration of RZ 14-06 to amend Article 6, Division 24, NUP Neighborhood Unit Plan District Agenda Item Number 14190.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion for approval from Councilmember Coontz, second from Councilmember Longoria. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. All right, Sudi, if you'll please call the next item.
Our last zoning agenda item is consideration of RZ 14-08 to amend Article 6, Division 4, R2, Single Family Residential District. Agenda item number 14192. First presentation was heard at the July 7th regular City Council meeting, discussed at the July 14th work session, deferred at the July 21st and September 22nd City Council meeting. Ms. Kathy Field.
Mr. Mayor, the Community Development Department recommends withdrawal of RZ 14-08, and that is essentially because as a result of the discussion on the October 13th Work Council, there were discussions regarding the status of the R2 and the proposed RR zoning districts, and based on these discussions, we now recommend withdrawing the proposed changes to these districts. Because in essence, what we've done is we've combined the intent of the R2 into the CUP with even more flexibility. So there really is not a need anymore for the RR.
Okay. Do we have any public comment?
We do just have one. That would be Mr. Walt Recook.
I'm not exactly sure what I'm hearing.
Excuse me, Mr. Recook.
My name's Walter Recook. I live at 615 Scarlet Oak Trail, Milton, Georgia.
Just in case we forgot.
Absolutely. Sorry about that. I'm not exactly sure what I understand, if the R2 is being completely eliminated, and if it is, then that is a district in which you could see potential use. It does have some requirements for smaller lots, but again, it has to be in a sewered area. I have no problem with eliminating the RR district because, as she stated, that is going to be the new CUP, but the R2, there are some elements in it which you could have smaller lots and basically smaller homes within those areas, and even the smaller homes aren't exactly that small. They're 1,600 square feet for a two-story dwelling on the ground level, or for two stories, 1,800 square feet. So again, they're not really small, but they are something that could be done. So I would not recommend eliminating or deleting it, but that's one where I would just kind of keep that one open, but get rid of the RR provision. And I'm not sure. I've got the same thing, I think. That's what you're talking about. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. You need more public comment, Sudi?
That's all, sir.
All right, I'll close the hearing and open it back up. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Joe?
Yes, I just want to make sure and answer Mr. Rico's question. We're withdrawing this altogether, so we're just.
We're going back to
voting
square
not
one.
Leaving it as
Change
is.
anything,
Right.
we're leaving it
That's
as
right.
is.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Anybody else? I'll open up for a motion then.
Mayor, okay, so what we're really doing is we're not approving, we're withdrawing.
Correct.
Okay, Mayor, I move that we withdraw consideration of RZ 14-08, agenda item number 14-192.
Second.
Okay, got a motion for withdrawal from Councilmember Longoria and a second by Councilmember Thurman. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, Sudi, if we can move on to unfinished business, you'll call the next item.
Our first item under unfinished business is consideration of an ordinance to amend Chapter 34, Section 22B, to add a new Chapter 34, Section 22C, and to amend Chapter 34, Section 22H of the Milton City Code Parks and Recreation Prohibited Acts. Agenda item number 14279. First presentation was heard at the October 6th regular council meeting. Mr. Jim Craig.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. What you have before you is an ordinance change, relates specifically to two aspects of our ordinances on proper usage of parks. The first one puts our ordinances in compliance with House Bill 60, which became law on July 1st. It's currently referred to as the open carry law. And this is just a wording change to make sure that our ordinances now match the state laws. The second changes the times that parks can be open. And we delineate the parks that have athletic fields that are lit can be open until 10:30 in an evening, except on Sunday it's a shorter time. And then unlit, or parks that do not have lit athletic fields would be closed from dusk till dawn. And this was something that we collaborated working with the City of Milton Police Department in efforts to help improve law enforcement and keeping our parks safe. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you.
Okay, can I butt in too? Is there anybody on staff that wouldn't mind checking the door? There's a couple of folks that have been standing there for quite a while. Maybe explain to them that they need to walk around.
Want me to
Sorry.
do it real
No,
quick?
no. Sorry to interrupt. Okay, questions? Bill?
How are we going to control this, Jim? Particularly with Birmingham Park. They do have a gate there. It's unlit. How are we going to preclude people from going in there after hours?
Well, first thing it does, by having an ordinance that says the park is closed, it gives the police department ammunition to work with to tell people that after hours you have to leave. Currently, the ordinances say that the park is open until midnight. And so there has been activity happening in that park after hours that is not palatable to the community. In addition to that, we've been working with the police department, and they've have offered to be able to close the gate. But in of itself, that one single gate doesn't close all the potential opportunities for people to take off-road vehicles into the park. So what it really does, the ordinance gives the police opportunity to enforce the rules.
I believe North Park is, well, it is gated, and I believe they do close the gates at night, even though it is lit.
Yes, North Park, City of Alfred Park, yes, sir.
Right.
They do close it. The police have a schedule within a period of a window of time that they close their gates. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
As with all policing activity, you can't guarantee you can be there exactly at 10 o'clock or whatever the time is.
Oh, sure. Well, it seems we're going to put something on the books that says you're not allowed in the park during certain hours like that, and if we're not going to gate it, we're going to leave it open, physically leave it open without gating it. Then it's left up to the police to patrol it or respond to some nuisance call there.
Again, that's essentially correct. There is one gate at the entrance at Old Bullpen Road, but there are so many other ways. It's 200-plus acres at Birmingham Park. There's people who have found their own ways into the park and created their own paths.
Well, I believe that's the only entrance that allows vehicles, though, is it not?
As an entrance that allows vehicles, yes, but again, off-road vehicles and people who are adventurous have certainly found their own ways in.
Okay.
There actually is a back entrance off of New Bullpen Road that has been metal roped off.
Rick?
If we pass this with the stated hours, then would we be, I guess to Bill's point, we may have a gate up there. Are we going to post hours for the park? Is there a plan to actually do a sign to tell the public that pulls up what the hours are?
Actually, the plan would be to modify the sign that's up there that currently says they're open until midnight. So we would be modifying the sign to say it's open until dusk till dawn.
Okay.
Closed dusk till dawn.
Yeah, Karen?
And obviously sometimes games or events can go on past 10:30 at night in lit fields, which Bell Memorial Park is going to become eventually.
Yes.
That doesn't preclude that those games can't go on if the time passes, according to you. Is that right? From where I read in the park.
Actually, what it would do is we are going to be closing the lights, turning the lights off at 10 o'clock out of respect to the neighbors on both sides of the park.
Okay.
And so if there's events that must be continued due to the nature, perhaps it's an elimination type event, that will simply have to be postponed until another day.
Okay. I mean, even if there was football games that happened or be delayed because of a rain out or something like that, even those would be postponed to
Then
a
we
later day.
reschedule it for another day. We want to be good neighbors to the
Right.
folks at Champions Overlook in Thompson Springs. And the ordinance actually says that a park like Bell Memorial Park can be open till 10:30. The idea is that the lights would be turned off by 10 o'clock, and it gives people a reasonable amount of time to pack up and leave.
Right. Makes sense.
Okay.
I know in the past, Providence Park had campsites, so people did stay overnight.
Yes.
And I'm assuming when we do get that park back, get that park to become a City of Milton Park, we can amend this with some kind of rules in place if we decide we want to allow Boy Scouts and all to use the park overnight.
I would presume that should we get in a position we can obtain Providence Park, which I hope we can, that certainly as we create the rules for that park, we could come back here and modify this specifically for Providence Park or any other future park that we obtain that becomes appropriate for overnight camping.
Okay, anything else? All right, thank you, Jim. I'll open up for a motion if we don't have any more questions.
Mr. Mayor, can I just add one just one item just to keep our record clean here tonight since we're in a public meeting, and that's our position with respect to Providence Park is that we will obtain Providence Park. So I don't want it to be any question as to hope we can or might be able to. Our belief is that park is Milton's park and that we will pursue it and pursue its transfer.
Thank you, Mr. Lagerman.
Thank you. All right, I'll open up for a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve an ordinance to amend Chapter 34, Section 22B to add new Chapter 34, Section 22C, and to amend Chapter 34, Section 22H of the Milton City Code, Parks and Recreation Prohibited Acts.
Second.
Agenda item number 14-279.
Second. All right, got a motion from Councilmember Longoria for approval with a second from Councilmember Morick. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Sudi, if you want to call the next item.
The next item is consideration of an ordinance to designate the Crabapple Historic District as a historic district, to prescribe the boundaries of such historic district, to require a certificate of appropriateness from the City of Milton Historic Preservation Commission prior to any material change in the exterior appearance of the historic property as shown on the official zoning map of the city, repealing conflicting ordinances, to provide for severability, to provide for an effective date, and for other purposes. Agenda item number 14280. A joint work session was held on September 15th. Another joint public hearing was held on September 22nd. First presentation was heard at the October 6th regular City Council meeting. I do have 3 public comments on this item. Ms. Kathy Fields.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to defer my presentation to our City Manager, Chris Lockeblum.
Mayor and Council, tonight before you is this topic which has been brought before you at several meetings leading up to now. I want to let you know that at this point, because of there being 2 landowners that were not officially notified of the joint meeting of the Council and the Historic Preservation Commission, I'm going to advise you tonight that at the end, when you decide to take whatever action you take tonight, it is not wise for us to take either a yes or a no vote on this particular agenda item. I can give as much or as little a presentation as you want. I think this has been discussed a lot amongst you, so I don't know that there's anything of any value that I can add to a presentation that you've not already seen. Having said that, you can certainly use your discretion to do whatever you want to do, but if you were to take our advice or take my advice and not vote it up or down, the 2 things that you could consider tonight after discussion is whether or not you even want to contemplate a vote on this in the future. If the answer to that is no, and that you really at this point believe that we've gone a different direction and we need to get on a different train track and get a different train, then the motion tonight would be to withdraw, and that essentially would remove this from the agenda. And it would not come back before you unless you directed us to bring something back before you at a later date. The other thing you could do would be to defer, and to defer would be with hopefully with a direction that says, Chris, go perfect the process, meaning go make sure that the right people are notified and have it come back to us so we can vote yes or no. Let's just say, though, for example, that you voted no tonight and the item went away, and a week from now you decided that because of current conditions that you would change your opinion. The same thing would occur as if you vote to withdraw, and that's that it would be off the table until such time as you direct me to put it back on the table. And just because you were to vote no on it at some point doesn't mean that it couldn't come back again with your direction to do that. So I want you to know you have an assortment of different options tonight. We certainly apologize for the fact that we missed those 2 addresses. We could perfect the process if you all decide you want us to, but I know there's been some pretty tremendous community discussion about this, which is a good thing. And we look forward to your direction tonight as to where you want to take this.
Okay, just to clarify, Chris, I got a question. If we were to vote to withdraw that, there's nothing saying at a later date if the council wanted to relook at it in a different, stance or just relook at it. It could be done, correct?
That's correct. Yep. Okay. Yep, that's absolutely correct.
Okay. All right. I just want to make a comment. I, have spoken with a lot of the affected property owners and do not seem to be in support of it. And so, therefore, I'm not going to necessarily make the motion, but I would like to, I personally would like to recommend that we withdraw it and then go back and look at it later in a different manner, possibly go in a different direction on it. So.
My thoughts are similar. I think this has gotten jumbled up along the way, and I think it's going to be easier for us to do a withdrawal and try to get this thing back on the right tracks in one way or another and represent it at a later date.
Anybody?
No, I mean, I agree with that. I don't know if we have not done a good job of communicating with the landowners or if we're going down the wrong path, but when you've got this many of the affected property owners that are not in favor of it, then it's probably not a good idea to go forward with it as it is.
Anybody?
Mayor, respectfully, we have 3 public comments.
I'm sorry.
Also.
I'm sorry. Yep. Let's before we close this. Well, if you want to make a comment, Rick, and then
I was just going to say I would echo some of the other comments that when we have this much objection to the existing, I think we need to go back and take a look at it in a different form versus continue to try to revise this.
Okay, Sudie, if you want to read those in the record.
The first comment comes from Patricia Cotterman.
She may not be here. Some of those they may want them to read in the record. There was a few folks here earlier that just filled out cards and wanted them to be on the record.
And we have a Bill Turner. And the next one is Stan Sparrow.
Yeah, I believe
and they're all in opposition.
But I think they wanted to make sure on the record that they're in opposition of it. Okay. And again, I think this is something that we could relook at a later date, but maybe look at it more on an individual basis or a process where an individual could choose to participate, but was not just blanketly forced in there. Now, granted, we've had some discussions, and Kathy or Chris can chime in. We've got with our existing ordinances and demolition and whatnot, that's got some teeth in it to where we don't really have to worry that somebody's going to come in the middle of the night and tear down a historic building.
That's correct. One of the main things that we were interested in pursuing this district was to protect the assets that still remain. So I believe that to that one small degree, we've got a process in place that we could enforce. We might need to add a little bit of teeth to it, but that we could enforce a building that is historic and that character area disappearing. I think we've got the ability to do that.
Okay. All right.
Mayor, I'll make a motion if there's no further comments.
Take a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to withdraw from consideration of an ordinance to designate the Crabapple Historic District as a historic district, to prescribe the boundaries of such historic district, to require a certificate of appropriateness from the City of Milton Historic Preservation Commission prior to any material change in the exterior appearance of the historic property as shown on the official zoning map of the city, repealing conflicting ordinances to provide for severability and to provide for an effective date and for other purposes. Agenda item number 14-280.
Second motion.
Okay. I have a motion to withdraw this item from Councilmember Thurman and a second. Sound to me like Councilmember Lusk. Got the second. Yeah. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, Sudi, if you would please call the next item.
Our last item this evening is consideration of a resolution authorizing the offering for sale of transferable development rights in certain city-owned property, authorizing the imposition of a conservation easement and/or public access easement on said property and for other purposes. Agenda item number 14281. This was deferred at the October 6th council meeting to tonight's meeting. And we do have one public comment in opposition. Ms. Kathy Field.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, staff continues to receive interest from the private sector in terms of potentially using their land for sale of TDRs. The staff also is working through the TDR process, and therefore, accordingly, we would request an additional 2 weeks, request a deferral for an additional 2 weeks before we bring this item back for your consideration.
Okay. Is there any questions for Kathy on this? I would say the good news, and I do believe staff is making positive progress. The good news there is interest on both the public side and the other route that we're looking at. So that is helping the system, so to speak, with the free market, letting that work to the advantage of everybody. So anybody have any questions on that before I ask for public comment? Okay, if you'll let public comment, Sudi.
That would be Mr. Jack Linden.
Mayor, City Council, I'm Jack Linden, live at 14810 East Bluff Road. I'm standing here in opposition to the idea of doing this. When I first heard about this concept of selling a TDR for Bell Memorial Park for a TDR, I heard it at the Planning Commission meeting a few months ago. And my first response was, I thought it was a misprint. I said, this is really crazy. Primarily, the real big problem here, seems to me, is that we have a public park that we're in the process of spending $9 million to build ball fields on. And that park, after we spend $9 million, I think that the chance of this council or any council in the foreseeable future selling that park for development is essentially zero. And therefore, it just doesn't make sense to sell a TDR on a piece of property that's never going to be developed anyway. And all the people I've talked to about this, and I have to admit that in my circle of friends, most of the people are pretty environmentally conscious and think about these things more than maybe a lot of other people. But they just don't understand why this would happen. Now, I appreciated the comments that were made 2 weeks ago. I appreciated the fact that you folks were skeptical about this, and I appreciated Councilmember Thurman's suggestion that if we were to do something like this, that the money could be used for a fund that would be used to buy other conservation easements. And I think that's a terrific idea. And if this were being proposed for Providence Park or even Birmingham Park, I might have a much different feeling about it. But for Bell Memorial Park, where we're developing ball fields, I just think it's going to leave a bad taste in people's mouths. And I don't want to see the TDR process, which is starting to get some traction. I don't want to see this become an issue for the general public to say, what the heck are we doing with this plan? What the heck are we doing with this ordinance to allow a public park that will never be developed to be sold and put into a conservation restriction? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is that all? Public comment?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Again, I think our staffs recommend that we defer this 2 more weeks. Is that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I think we've made enough progress in the last 2 weeks. We're not to where I'm going to have an answer for you in the next couple of days, but we've made enough progress that I believe that the timing is such that to seek a deferral until November the 3rd, which would be the next meeting. If we can make as much progress in the next 14 days as we made in the past 14 days, maybe there's something that we'll have to talk about.
Okay.
I don't want to shut the door on it yet, though, if you'll give us the opportunity to continue to work.
Anybody else, Rick? Okay. If there's no more comments or questions, I'll open up to Mr. Morag.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we defer consideration of agenda item number 14-281. Refer it officially at this point.
To the November 3rd?
To the November 3rd, 2 weeks out.
I'll second that.
Okay, we've got a motion from Councilmember Morag for deferral till November 2nd. Is it 2nd?
3rd.
3rd. Meeting, and a second from Councilmember Thurman. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay. We'll move on to staff reports.
Mr. Mayor and Council, a couple of updates for you tonight. One is just going to save us a bunch of typing, but we'll get a response out to you. You probably saw an email suggested that we needed to look at the widths of our subdivision streets. I don't know if you've seen that, but it came to the entire council. Bert did some great detective work for us, and it finds out that the neighborhoods that were being questioned are not neighborhoods that are actually in Milton. They were built in Forsyth County. So we don't necessarily have a response to what the widths of the roads were in those two neighborhoods. So we'll get you out a response, but that was some good investigative work today before we just assumed that it was stuff that we had dealt with.
So was this resident that sent this email?
Just inside our border, but questioning the widths of some subdivision streets in Forsyth County.
Okay.
I talked to Carter a little bit beforehand, so I reached out to the person, so I'll reach out again, and I think that would probably suffice.
Perfect. At
this point. I'll let you know if there's anything else.
Okay, great. So good news there. I do want to ask, and I've got a list of things. I'd ask you to look for an email either later tonight or first thing in the morning with a list of topics that I would like you all to come meet with me about, either individually or 2 by 2, if that fits better with your schedule. There's some things that are in the hopper right now that are important and critical, and I could use some direction on them, but they're not the type of topics that I'm ready to talk about yet, that I want them to appear in a public forum. So I kind of need you to look at your calendars, if you wouldn't mind, for me. I want to say that publicly and see if you could either schedule 2 by 2 or individually in the next 10 days or so would be real helpful. And I'll send more information out to you about that in email. Other than the updates that I provided last week in a fairly lengthy email, I don't have any other staff reports tonight, unless you've got a question that you've question on a certain topic, I'd be happy to respond to it.
I just want to say the meeting we had last week with Randall Laurent was very well done. There was a lot of information that he presented. I thought that was very, very knowledgeable for everybody in the community that was there that partook of it, and I was very glad to be there and hear more of it. So I just want to commend you guys, the staff, for bringing that in and having us participate and kind of seeing how it is.
Okay. One last thing I heard, Kathy, and I even had this sitting in front of me, and I was about to forget it. Is I want to pass and just show you what we think is what should be the proposed paint color for the Hopewell House. As they've been doing their renovation of that house, we've been able to identify what we believe the house was painted before it was painted the yellow that it is, more of its original color, and that was able to be found in the attic. So we tried to match that color as closely as we could. I've got an example of what that looks like. It's a softer white than it is a bright yellow, and we think that probably at least the architects and the design people tell me that this is the right color to paint the house. So I want to pass the chip down. If anybody feels that it's absolutely the wrong direction to go, let me know. But I think it makes more sense than keeping it the yellow mustardy color that it is today. Okay, that's what I had. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thanks. All right, does council have anything?
I'll move to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
This whole thing.
You opposed? It's unanimous.
It matches.